Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are immersing ourselves in a place that really conjures images of peace. Colombia's Eje Cafetero, the coffee region. You picture those green hills, the mist, you can almost smell the coffee roasting. It's a landscape built on community, on trust. But our sources reveal something much darker hidden beneath that surface. For, over a decade, a series of calculated, frankly chilling serial crimes unfolded almost silently. So our mission today is to unpack the story of Juan Carlos Villa Cardona. How did this man target the most vulnerable people in this high-trust society? And the real puzzle, for me at least, is how did this pattern go unnoticed for so long?
It really is a story of contrast, like you said, and betrayal. The killer's success was all about the lack of noise. This isn't your typical urban crime drama with flashing lights and headlines. We're looking at something quieter, more insidious, silent horror, really, how someone could weaponize compassion itself.
Okay, let's set the scene first. Geographically, where are we exactly?
We're in the department of Risaralda. Think of mountains, bamboo forests, small towns like Pereira, Dos Quebradas, Santa Rosa de Cabal, Marcela, La Virginia. Very tight-knit places.
And the sources really emphasize this community trust aspect.
Yeah.
Right? Like people knowing each other, maybe not even locking doors all the time.
Exactly. It's that older way of life, perhaps. You know your neighbors, they know you. There's an assumption of safety. Usually, serial crime needs anonymity, like in a big city. But this case, it's different. He wasn't seeking anonymity. He was seeking solitude, the solitude of his victims.
And that brings us to the targets. Who exactly was he watching in these seemingly safe communities?
They fit a very specific, very sad profile. Overwhelmingly older adults, often in their 70s or 80s. Many were widowed, living alone in quite remote rural houses, miles sometimes from the nearest police station or even a main road.
And often isolated in another way, too.
Yes, a common factor was children having moved away, maybe to the cities for work, leaving their elderly parents quite disconnected from daily support or oversight.
So when we talk about what he gained, the assets involved, we're not talking about high-value targets here, are we?
Not at all. Consistently minimal, maybe a small plot of land, literally a single cow, perhaps some cash tucked away, a few $100s maybe.
It seems like a very low reward for such a terrible act.
It suggests the motivation wasn't primarily financial gain in the usual sense. It was about finding the easiest possible target. Someone easy to watch, unlikely to be missed right away, and crucially, someone who might just open the door out of kindness or habit. Zero resistance.
That level of calculation is, unnerving. Let's talk about the man himself, Juan Carlos Villa Cardona. He grew up there in that rural poverty. What did people think of him? Was he known?
Feared.
Not feared, no. Quite the opposite, according to villagers. They described him as quiet, reserved, withdrawn. Not someone known for being aggressive or having a temper. He just sort of blended in, passed by on the road without attracting much notice. His real tool wasn't intimidation, it was deception. And this is the part that's it's hard to fathom. The strategy he used to get close to people in these trusting communities.
It's quite sophisticated, psychologically. He had this uncanny ability to mimic vulnerability, to make himself appear helpless.
How did he do that specifically?
The sources detail him pretending to have a disability. Often he'd claim to be mute or maybe hearing impaired. He'd use hand gestures, looking confused or harmless. It instantly disarmed people.
Right, because if you're elderly, living alone, and someone comes to your gate appearing mute, maybe gesturing for water or looking lost.
Your instinct is compassion, especially in those communities. You see someone needing help, not a threat. He literally used their goodness against them. It was a performance.
A performance that bypassed the entire community trust system. It's chillingly effective in that specific context. So this didn't just start suddenly. The pattern built up slowly, right?
Yeah.
The first linked case was way back in 2012.
That's right. March 2012 in Marcella. Involved 2 elderly people and even a minor. But initially, authorities saw it as, maybe a robbery that went wrong, an isolated tragedy.
They didn't connect it to anything else?
No, not for years. And that failure to connect the dots comes down to his method. It was so procedural, so quiet. There wasn't a big spectacle. Legal documents and investigations eventually pieced together this really cold 4-step process he used.
Good. Let's break that down. What were the 4 steps?
Step 1, identify. Find that older person living alone, minimal family support nearby, isolated.
Step 2, gain trust.
Exactly. Approach the house. Use that act, the harmless traveler, the mute person, the injured worker needing help. Get them to let you in or let their guard down.
And then step 3.
Step 3 was the attack and take belongings. He primarily used sharp objects, knives or machetes, common tools in the area, and the theft. It was almost an afterthought. A few small items, cash if he found it, maybe tools, even just food sometimes. It provided a motive, but a misleading one. The violence seemed disproportionate to the theft.
Which probably confused investigators initially.
Right. And step 4, absolutely crucial for operating for a decade. Leave quietly, no big escape, no confrontation if possible, just vanish. Back onto the rural roads by foot, maybe motorcycle, maybe a local bus. Blend back in. That lack of drama was his shield.
So, geographically isolated victims, low financial motive on the surface, quiet exit. But still, over 10 years. Why didn't someone, somewhere, see the pattern across different towns? Was it just local police forces not talking to each other?
That's really the heart of the systemic issue this case brought to light. It wasn't just local police, though that was part of it. It was a kind of data blindness at a higher level, too, at that time. The police in Santa Rosa de Bicabal investigating a quiet homicide of an elderly person has no easy way, or maybe no standard procedure, to link it with a similar, seemingly low-level case 50 kilometers away in Virginia.
Because they didn't look connected.
They didn't look like part of a larger organized threat, like, say, cartel violence. There was no loud signature tying them together. The horror unfolded quietly in separate files in separate municipalities. It took the national body, the Fiscalía General de la Nación, the Attorney General's office, to finally assign investigators who could look across those boundaries much later and see the pattern wasn't in the method of theft, but in the victim profile.
Okay, so that shift happens between 2022 and 2023. What was the turning point? How did the Fiscalía finally connect these scattered, quiet cases?
A lot of credit goes to the persistence of some victims' relatives. They just didn't buy the simple robbery gone wrong explanation they kept pushing. And when the national investigators started pooling the data, looking for common threads, the elements jumped out.
The victim profile.
Yes, the age, the isolation, the rural setting, the minimal theft. And then, crucially, witness reports started to align. Scattered across different towns, different years, people remembered seeing a quiet man, sometimes described as having a speech impairment, near the victims' homes around the time of the deaths. And a name started to surface more than once: Juan Carlos Villa Cardona.
So the very act he used for deception, the feigned mutinous, eventually became the thread that tied him to the crimes.
Kind of ironic, isn't it? That consistent performance became his signature. They finally had a solid lead.
And the arrest, was it dramatic?
No, very much in keeping with his persona. Arrested quietly in late 2023. No resistance. Reports say neighbors were shocked. He was just that unremarkable guy who'd always been around. Investigators linked him definitively to at least 11 homicides, but suspect there could be more.
And when questioned, did he maintain the quiet act, or did he break down?
Reports suggest he remained calm, emotionless even. Described his methods, his victim selection, with this chilling, matter-of-fact clarity. No remorse reported. It really points towards, significant psychopathic traits, that complete lack of empathy, the calculation.
And there's another layer here too, isn't there? His family. It wasn't entirely just him acting alone.
That's a really important point. While Juan Carlos seems to have been the main architect, the driving force, his brothers, Jose Alfredo and Jose David Villa Cardona, were also implicated. They were accused or charged in connection with some deaths of elderly people, too. It complicates the picture.
How so?
Well, it shifts it slightly from just a lone predator narrative. It suggests maybe this kind of predatory behavior targeting the isolated elderly might have been discussed or even normalized within that specific family environment. That's a deeply disturbing possibility.
So the legal outcome. Villa Cardona was found guilty on multiple counts, sentenced to around 45 years. He got that grim title, the killer of the elderly is Risaralda. But beyond the sentence, what does this tell us psychologically?
The way he manipulated compassion, pretending to be disabled. It's textbook exploitation. He wasn't just finding weakness. He was actively targeting people's kindness, their willingness to help. That reveals a profound level of manipulation, a core trait often associated with psychopathy. He understood the social rules, the instinct to help, and he twisted it for his own ends.
And the impact on the Ixche Cafetero itself, a region defined by that trust he broke.
Devastating. When the news broke widely in late 2023, it wasn't just fear, it was a rupture. People who'd never locked their doors started doing so. That fundamental assumption of safety, especially in those rural areas, it just evaporated. Families living elsewhere suddenly felt this terror for their aging relatives back home. It forced a really painful reassessment of their way of life.
It sounds like it forced a reassessment for the authorities, too. What were the big lessons learned systemically from this decade-long failure to connect the dots?
Several big ones. First, it starkly highlighted the vulnerability of elderly people living alone in deep rural isolation, often without much social safety net. There's a need for better checks, better support systems. Second, the obvious need for better rural policing, not just occasional patrols, but a more consistent presence and perhaps different strategies for those remote areas.
And the data issue.
Absolutely critical. The urgent need for better systems so different police forces, different municipalities can share information quickly and effectively. Especially for these kinds of low-spectacle crimes, jurisdictional lines shouldn't create blind spots where a pattern can hide. And finally, it challenged that stereotype that the only really serious or calculated violent crime in Colombia happens in cities or is linked to cartels. This showed that cold, methodical violence can thrive anywhere, even, maybe especially, where trust is highest.
So this deep dive really shows us how danger can hide behind the quietest, most unassuming facade, and how silent, calculated cruelty can exploit the very best of a community for years.
Yeah, the Villa Cardona case is a stark reminder. The loudest threats aren't always the most dangerous ones. It really forces us to think about the risks created by isolation, particularly for the elderly, even in places we think of as peaceful backwaters.
So if this kind of calculated cruelty could exploit the kindness and isolation inherent in a place like the EJ Cafetero, here's something to think about. What hidden vulnerabilities, what kinds of isolation might exist even in the modern connected communities you feel safest in today?
If you enjoyed this video and want to dive deeper into more cases like this one, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like the video if you found the story compelling, and share it with your friends and family who might be interested in true crime and mysteries. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with all our latest content and join a growing community of curious minds exploring the most fascinating cases. Click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything.